Sense Radio.
Good morning, you bunch of drunks.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Thursday. The most popular name ever for women is Kennedy. Welcome with open arms.
Hello.
Well, actually, it's not Kennedy.
Sorry, that's where I thought we were going with that.
It's not.
It's Mary.
Oh.
And then number 2 is Patricia. And I think what I love about this list is I love this picture of Patty Duke, a young Patty Duke, with this cigarette in her hand and this kind of look on her face. Patty Duke was, honestly, was fantastic, but her attitude was even better. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, Lisa Montgomery, also known as Kennedy, happens to be the 15th most popular name.
No, isn't that wonderful? Yeah. No, I always know when someone was born in the 70s. Whenever I meet someone named Lisa, I'm like, yep. Nixon, Carter, where were you?
Yeah, right. Let me ask you this, if you don't mind. So where did the name Kennedy then come from?
My parents. So that was my middle name.
Oh.
And it was supposed to be my first name, but my dad didn't think I'd be able to spell it when I got to school. So... So they settled on a simple first name, and that's my middle name. And my dad's name was Kenneth, and my parents were Camelot Democrats.
Oh, great. That's cool.
So they were like old school, you know. There aren't Democrats like that anymore because they were conservative in a lot of ways, but just believed that the government should help people out, but not like in the Bernie Sanders way.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, I get that. I mean, because they might be, to a certain degree, Republicans under the current conditions, but even Republicans sometimes don't act that way. But yeah, I think Kennedy, you know, I mean, he was a tax cutter. He was a pro-life dude. I mean, it was pretty. He was pretty conservative. I mean, and he was a Cold Warrior too. So he was, you know. Yeah,
he hated commies, and you know, was hawkish, and. Instilled a lot of Americanism and patriotism, and which was sort of a transfer from the Eisenhower days, like the post-war boom. So
yeah,
there are a lot of people in the Midwest who were very taken with that.
Yeah, and he got us to the moon, which is that was a big friggin' deal. And, I mentioned his speech, the ask not what your country could do for you, but what you can do for your country. When we were talking about the State of the Union address, I know that wasn't his State of the Union address, it was an inaugural address, but still, then I did that and did all these different great famous speeches and then reminded people about President Obama's famous "You didn't build that speech.
Somebody else made that happen."
And so I was like, but even Democrats back in the day weren't that debilitating in their approach. That you talk about a stock market tanking after you hear that. Yeah, it's not going to go very well. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean that phrase has always infuriated me because this is someone who has never run a business, has always lived in a political or academic bubble, and that was always one of the most out of touch phrases, which to me is still shocking. And then Hillary slurring came out not long after that and said, corporations don't create jobs. And it's like, what are you, nuts?
Right. No, I get it. And, by the way, I'm going to take a hugely cheap shot here, but I had to do it because it was in my promo for you for the show. And I said that when I usually say, hey, coming up on Thursday, we've got Ed Henry and Chris Wall, blah, blah, blah. And I said, and a Kennedy that doesn't drool. It's fantastic. I thought that was a really good line.
That were true.
I know. No, I know. But yesterday, I mean, listen, taking apart the Joe Kennedy thing, which I'm not really a nitpicker about this kind of stuff, but still, it wasn't really a good moment for the Democrats on a number of different levels in their reaction to the State of the Union.
No, I thought it could have been much more positive, and it was just another negative reactionary speech. But I always think that you should take time and listen to the State of the Union and have some good, well thought out counterpoints, no matter who the president is, and then sort of outline your vision from there. And I don't really feel like he took the opportunity to do that. It was like, this weird sort of campaign rally grandstanding. And I've always thought that the response is so awkward. It's one of the most uncomfortable things to watch. And I know both sides always put an up-and-comer who could potentially be presidential material. And I don't think Joe Kennedy is it. And I
No.
think, if you look at Marco Rubio's, the desperate water grab, that sort of limited good perception of him as well.
Yeah, I agree. And it was interesting how, a party that really has been all about promoting diversity and talking about the wealthy being the ones who are taking everything from the government or from us, and then they get the whitest guy from the wealthiest family in the history of the country up there.
Yeah, this dynastic millennial multimillionaire, and it's like, oh yeah, he's real in touch with voters in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Come on.
Hey, can I ask you if you are, because you are a civil libertarian, and I realize that any time, there are authorities that are abusing their power, it's deeply concerning to you, as it should be to everybody. But you are able to detect a lot more of that than other people are. So would you think that the ACLU, for instance, would be more involved in, this memo I realize is being called partisan, what have you, but don't you think that even from a civil liberties standpoint that the media and others ought to be more interested in actually seeing what's in this memo?
I'm surprised that Democrats aren't more interested in seeing what's in the memo. That's the shocking thing to me, is that they haven't gone into one of these skiff rooms, those classified, fortified rooms, and read the memo and decided for themselves. And, they've just decided without reading it that it's a completely politicized document. But, the point is, like, when you talk about those kind of abuses of power, they have almost nothing to do with party. And, it's funny because Republicans and Democrats both want to protect the surveillance state for different reasons. But, it comes back to the point of constitutionality and the oath that these people take to uphold the Constitution. And if there is an abuse of power from the intelligence community, they are the stewards who are supposed to change the laws to keep us safe from overreach and warrantless searches. And they're not doing their job. And, if the question is, were there people at the FBI who were protecting Hillary Clinton or targeting Donald Trump because they wanted to protect their power? That's a misuse of power. That's an abuse of power. And that's something that needs to be addressed. And, Devin Nunes sitting on this memo for as long as he has and not releasing it before the reauthorization vote for Section 702 of the FISA Act is so hypocritical and hollow. And I think there's plenty of blame to go around on both sides. And the only cure for that is letting us see what's in there, whatever it is, whether it's text messages, this memo, the Democratic memo. If there's something that really compromises national security, redact it. But other than that, let us decide.
Yeah, that's a really great point you bring up about Nunes and how if I happen to like him, but I agree with his desire to release the memo. But you're pointing out that if he really had some guts and wasn't one of those people just kind of trying to protect a surveillance state for their own usage and everything else, he would have actually released this beforehand, because that perhaps would have tilted the vote against FISA, which we've all been talking about anyway as part of the Patriot Act and everything else, where there were some mistakes made post 9/11, and I think that's a great point you make. I have not heard anybody discuss that at any length. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising because you can't be mad that there's overreach only in certain instances when it hurts someone that you're aligned with.
Yeah.
That's something that we need to be concerned with day in and day out. And the memo didn't just spring out of nothing. Like he's had the intelligence and they've known about it for months. And of course, we want to make sure we keep our country safe and protect our freedoms and go after bad guys overseas. And if they had passed the Amash Amendment to the reauthorization, all it would have done is make sure that law enforcement agencies can't snoop on the information that's been collected and use it for other means without warrants.
Yeah.
And, if they were so concerned about an American caught up with a foreign target, they just have to get a warrant to get more information on them.
I'm with you. And we'll be with you tonight, 7 o'clock
and
Central.
I'm always with you in spirit and heart and soul.
Well, you know what? I was just about to say. Yeah, you and me to you, Kennedy. You're the best. Appreciate it so much. And we'll see you tonight on TV.